Okay everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video on Gran Turismo 7. I'm back with some highlights from the GTWS Series Nations Round 1. Yes, it is finally back. Now, if you do enjoy these videos, consider giving it a like, subscribe to the channel, feel free to share it wherever you want to. And yeah, hopefully you're going to really enjoy this. This was actually a really enjoyable round. I have to say, it's really great to have GTWS Series Nations back on the game. It's probably the best part of Gran Turismo when it's active, the competitive side of it. So round 1, we were at Sardegna A in Group 2. Now, we're joining our first qualifying lap for this in slot 1 in split 2. Points were 408 for the win in this, so some quite big points available. Obviously, I wasn't really aiming to get them kind of points, so in this race, we wanted to try and get some solid points. Now, I said at the start of this race, if I get P5, I would consider maybe taking them points because they were around about 339, I think they were. So I was like, yeah, maybe I'd take them, maybe we'd go again. But you can see on this lap so far, not the greatest lap. I've made a few mistakes on the lap straight away on the first few sectors. And then by the time we get to the end of the lap here, we're coming up to that tricky corner. And I decided to try and send it through there and managed to do it okay, actually. It wasn't too bad. Maybe had a little bit more pace we could have took on the exit. And then the final corner, trying to get on that throttle quite nicely. I had a little bit of a moment on the rear, so not the greatest lap for our first qualifying session, but it was a pretty solid lap. People were obviously, it's not the easiest lap to get the perfect lap in, so by the time we go over the line, you can see it's going to jump us up to P5. However, that's going to go down to P6 by the time we start the race because there was another driver who improved slightly over that lap. So starting the race in P6, not a bad position to be in, especially with the custom slipstream. Remember now, Group 2 runs on the custom slipstream, which allows you to follow a lot easier, and it also gives you a little bit too much slipstream, in my personal opinion. I think it's a bit too strong, the slipstream that you receive on the straights. But it does certainly make the racing that little bit more enjoyable now that you can actually follow and battle in these cars. It actually makes Group 2 probably one of the better car groups when it comes to racing. It's just a shame the BOP isn't exactly great at the moment in Group 2, with the NSX being dominant most races. Now, starting the racing, you can see there we had a P7, I think, had a little look up the inside of turn 1. Bit optimistic. He ended up losing a few attempts for having a little look down that inside. But we're just aiming to stay at the start. First few laps is just build that rhythm up, stay with the cars ahead, try not to get involved with incidents. And yeah, just try and stay with the battle towards the front. We've got Maxo in the front, who we all know is a very quick driver, and Macca's in his slipstream. So Macca's going to be able to use Maxo's slipstream and try and drag himself forward in this race. And as we were coming through turn that tricky corner, we run a little bit wide on lap 1. Now you're going to get a tiny bit of dirty tyres. You can see P5 also made a little bit of a mistake there, and then he runs a little bit wide and loses a little bit of ground to the cars in front. So luckily for me, kind of did that mistake because it meant I could stay a little bit closer to the slipstream and didn't lose out too much. I think we lost out about 2-3 tenths maybe because of maybe the right hand side being slightly dirty on the tyres, but at least we completed the lap without damage. Now remember, these races run full heavy damage, so it's very easy to make one little mistake and ruin the whole race. Now this was an 18 lap race, so it was important to keep it calm and just be very, very careful with any sort of overtake and any sort of move, and obviously your braking zones as well. Try not to get too close to the cars in the front. So you can see Lewis up ahead having a few little laggy moments. I've noticed that in this race here. Every now and then his car was stuttering a little bit, and that'll be relevant later on when we show you something. But yeah, he's having a few little lag moments as he's driving along there. Looks like his connection was playing up a little bit. But we got right back up behind these now. You can see that we got Fondas also behind us around 6 tenths. Now Fondas obviously isn't getting that strong part of the slipstream where he is, but then he will gain a bit in the braking zones and obviously in the corners. So he's going to pick up, as I have to obviously brake it a little bit early there. You can see it goes from 7 tenths and then he catches back up to the 6 tenths. So yeah, we obviously have to brake a little bit early and be a little bit cautious that we don't get too close to these cars in front. So straights we pull away, and then in the corners he'll generally gain behind us, and then we're coming up to that really tricky corner. You can see just how close this racing is at the front here between P1 and 2, starting to pull away a bit, and that's the advantage for Macca there, is he's managing to stay in that slipstream to Max and just working with him, and they're starting to pull away a bit now. And we're in a very close group between P3, 4, 5, 6, and we got Fondas right behind us there in P7. So this is going to be very, very interesting. And also, I think behind Fondas, the car right behind him was only a matter of half a second behind as well. So this is going to be a very interesting race all the way to the end with this slipstream, especially with the tyre wear. The tyre wear multiplier on this race was ×8, which was going to make it extremely difficult in terms of looking after your tyres. You can see already we're only on the start of lap 4, so we've only completed 3 laps, and we're on the medium tyres at the moment. You can already see that tyre wear that's happened off 3 laps. Now, we had to make this a 1-stop race because there was no way that we could make it a 2-stop with the tyre wear like that. So we had to do 12 laps on the mediums and 6 laps on the softs. That was the only strategy you could get away with doing. You couldn't pit earlier because then you wouldn't make it on the softs, and you couldn't go later because the mediums wouldn't do 13 laps. So you had to try and get it this way. 12 and 6 was the only way to really do it. And we can see here on lap 6 here, coming up to just approaching the halfway stage. At the end of this lap will be at the halfway stage, and you can really see that tyre wear kicking in as P5 has a little bit of moment. We're all just staying pretty close at the moment. There's not much going on. We're trying to just stay in the slipstream, play it smart, get away from a lot of the other cars. And you can actually see at this stage, Lewis makes a big mistake there off the corner, and that's going to give us the opportunity to go up to P5. So a little bit of a mistake by Lewis. That's going to knock him down a little bit. And now we're going to try and just work our way into these next group of cars and try and see if we can gain some more positions before we come to that pit stop phase. You can see Lewis there just waiting behind. They did have a little look, but I think he decided let's just bump draft and work together to try and get a little bit back on the cars in front. So skipping ahead to lap 9, and you can see I had an opportunity here to go for a move, so we're going to go up that inside. Lovely little move up the inside there, and we make that move cleanly and up into P4. And also you can see everyone taking advantage of that. That corner is a pain because you have to go to the wide line, and then everyone else just says, right, I'm going to go for that move as well. And you can see he actually gets put all the way down to P7 because we went for the move, then everyone went for the move. So a bit unfortunate for him, but that is racing. And now we're in the slipstream to P3, and we need to try and catch him up. You can see the gap is at 9/10 to him, nearly a second there now. But he's not really in the slipstream to the cars ahead. So we're going to fast forward the action up this straight and into the really fast corner here. And as we come through here, this is rather unfortunate. Yeah, an absolute fatality there for P3, and that is what can happen on these combinations, especially with heavy damage and that corner being so tricky. It's so easy to turn in at the wrong point and just ruin your whole race. So an instant promotion there to P3 in the race, and now we've got Lewis behind us. We're a little bit too far as we go a little bit too much on the curb there. With this tyre wear, we used a bit too much curb and the rear nearly gave up on us, but we managed to hold on. Now Lewis is going to go for that move on lap 12. He wants to get in the pit stops ahead of ourselves, so he goes for a move around the outside. He actually makes a lovely move around the outside there. You can see we give him the space, and he actually holds a really good exit speed and puts himself up into P3 and knocks ourselves back down to P4. But you see there, Thunder's still around 9/10 behind us and hanging on in that slipstream. And now we're going to just try and pretty much stay with Lewis here until the pit stop phase, because there's no point fighting too much really, but I would have preferred to get in the pits ahead of him. But you can see here, we're not going to go for a move there. We're just going to back out, pick up that slipstream, and then again, Lewis has another moment. I'm not sure if he started to get a little bit messy with the tyre wear. And obviously another factor of this race is, you think, like, when you're behind the car, you think, yeah, I'm faster, but then when you get in front, you don't have that slipstream, and you can see it starts to drop back as I nearly go straight into the wall there where I wasn't really concentrating. I was trying to bump Lewis forward, and again into the braking zone. Lewis makes another mistake there. I'm not sure if his tyres were really bad, but my tyre, looking at my tyres at this stage, we pretty much have nothing left on that rear right. So our tyres also really struggling here, and now into this really tricky left-hand corner. Just taking it easy there, didn't want to take any risks, and then into the braking zone. Make sure that we don't lose traction as we put the throttle down here. And now Lewis gets a much better exit off that corner, and we're going to pick up that slipstream all the way into the pit lane. So one thing that's going to happen here though is we're going to pick up the slipstream, so we're going to be going into the pit slightly quicker. That's going to make our pit stop a little bit quicker. So when we come out, we're going to be very, very close to him, and obviously in his slipstream as well. So with the ghosted car situation, I knew this was going to happen. We were in a pretty much situation where we might be able to get ahead of him. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually back off a little bit and go to the right hand side and then tuck underneath. Now, Lewis goes a little bit wide there, and we've got the inside line now into the next left-hand corner, and Fonda sees that as well. He's given us a bump. He wants to go through on that inside as well. And then keep your eye on the mirror here. Lewis has a massive lag moment. Just all of a sudden starts lagging just as Fonda's was going down the inside. And so unfortunately for Fonda's, the lag just completely punted him out. Nothing Lewis could do there. It's just an unfortunate circumstance. The lag hits his car, and Fonda's is pretty much out this race. Really, really got him for Fonda's there. But we're still in the race in P3, and we're battling with Lewis there on this first race. And you can see there, coming up to the final lap now, we actually drove really well on the softs. We actually managed to hold ourselves ahead until this final lap. And we had enough of a gap to defend into this braking zone, even though we had no slipstream at all. And in the braking zone, we get everything reasonably well here. We have a little, I think we have a little moment of loss of traction there with the tyres. No, it was all fairly clean there, but Lewis is obviously going to pick up that slipstream. And now we're going to go to the left to just avoid giving him that slip. And now into this really tricky section. This left to right, you've got to use the gears to rotate the car. And then as we get on the power, you can see I think I hit the curb too much there, and I lose traction on the rear. Now Lewis is going to take advantage of that and go for the move. So after working so hard to hold on to this P3, we're now on the fret. Now we're going to try and hold a tight line. We managed to go side by side through there with Lewis, but the car behind is obviously going to try and go around the outside and give Lewis the bump draft. But you can see here, Lewis bumping Lewis to get past, and then he's going to try and overtake Lewis also. Now, as we come to the braking zone, I think this was a little bit naughty by P4. You can see he brakes a little bit too late. I brake early and make sure I go wide to try and tuck back underneath. He gives Lewis a little tap there, and unfortunately for Lewis, that's going to lose him the position. So maybe P3 should have backed out and give him that position back. I'm not too sure. And then as we come through here, I make a little bit of a mistake trying to go too fast through there because I wanted to try and get that P3 back. And Lewis is going to take that position back off us. We're going to try and hold it around the outside, but we're not able to do that on that corner with the lack of grip on these tyres. You can see our tyres were absolutely done at this phase, but we're going to have to settle for a P5. P3, maybe I think should have waited for Lewis there. He should have backed off and waited for him and given him that position back, because the move wasn't really the cleanest. But yeah, we take a P5 in the first race, but we decided that wasn't good enough. It was 339 points, but decided to go again. Thanks to the people in the chat when we streamed this live for pushing me to go again. And this was the qualifying session for the second race. Now, going into turn one, we do an okay corner, but you see I had to give it a little lift off the throttle on the exit, and I knew at that point there that is going to knock me to a 10th or 2 down by the first sector, because I just know that that corner is so important. So I'm kind of chasing it already. Now, as we come through this corner, we do this reasonably well. We get into third gear. We actually carry reasonable speed out the exit, but by the time we come to the first sector, I think it's a 31.9, which is 10th and a half off what I should be getting, or even 2 tenths off a really good first sector. So I know already at this stage that I'm chasing, and I'm going to have to try my hardest to get some sort of hook up on some of these corners to fight back some time. And as we come into the braking zone here, you can see we're going to look for the 100 board on the right hand side there, braking just before that, and then use that first gear to rotate it, and then up to second and really try and be aggressive. Now we got quite aggressive there, used a bit of the outside part of the track and actually gained a little bit of time back, and at this sector split we're pretty much on the same lap that we was before. Now I decided to just send it through here, and we send it with some pretty high speed. Now I did run a little bit wide, and I was concerned about the dirty tyre on the right hand side. Used first gear for the rotation, and as we put the power down, you can see the rear did try and go, but I managed to catch it. So I think maybe a half a tenth loss there, not too much, maybe half a tenth at most, but we definitely gained a little bit through the speed that we took through the corner. And by the time we go over the line, it's ever so slightly quicker than our first session qualifying, a 32.125. Should have been a 31.9 really. The first sector was really poor, it was over a 10th and a half off. So yeah, we would have probably crept into the 31s if we'd just done a normal first sector, but still was good enough to start us P5 in split 2 on slot 2. And from here, anything's possible. We got very, very fast drivers in this race again. We got Juju at the front, Prez in P2, World Tour drivers in this race with Bray. He's been to a World Finals. So a very, very competitive race, and it's going to be a very, very difficult race to try and get some big points from in this slot 2 race. But as we did before in the slot 1, we're just going to take this easy on lap 1. It's all about just trying to stay in the slipstream, figure the race out, get into that rhythm, and actually kind of a good idea to try and work with some cars if you can. Now obviously if there's an overtaking opportunity where you can get into the slipstream, I'm going to take it because we don't want to lose the slipstream to the other cars. And I can see already that P4 was starting to drop off a little bit from P2 and P3, and that concerns me a little bit. But we're obviously not going to go for a send up the inside here, so we're just going to brake nice and early and try and get the car rotated. But you can see it here, he gets a little bit closer there, obviously in the braking phase, manages to get back a little bit behind P3. But then as we come through this really tricky corner, like I say, this corner was so tricky, especially on lap 1 with the cold tyres, on the medium tyres were cold, but we managed to do it a little bit better this time. P4 does run a little bit wide there, and then into the braking zone, just trying to make sure we brake with plenty of time for this tight left-hand corner that goes onto the main straight. But again, right up behind P4, and you can actually see as we come through this corner, there is a bit of a gap developing, and you do not want to get that gap, because with the power of the slipstream they'll just pull away. So I decided here, let's see if we can get ahead of him and see if we can start catching up to them cars in front. So I think our pace might have been ever so slightly quicker. So we go for a little bit of a move up the inside. He gives us space. I don't think he fights it, because I think at this point he just thinks, yeah, maybe let's see if he can get a little bit closer to them cars. And we actually did get a little bit closer. You can see at this stage here we're starting to get a little bit of a gap to P5, and we're getting a little bit closer to P2 and P3, who are also battling. Now P1 was gradually pulling away at this stage. Very quick driver, and he's built up a gap where he's starting to break away from the slipstream. But P2 was also quite quick, and by the time we get to lap 6 here, you can see that P2 had managed to catch up to P1 and actually went for a move on the inside there. And he's actually going to go for that move. And also you can see here we had built up a gap of over 1 second to P5. So we did actually have slightly better race pace. Not massively, but enough to build up a bit of a gap. And then as we come to the braking phase here, it's getting really messy. And unfortunate for Juju there is, because of the slipstream, there's nothing he can do. And he's dropped from P1 all the way down to P3. But we're still in that slipstream. And now we're going to go through this fast left-hand corner. Now this was so unfortunate for P3. You can see P2 runs wide, hits the barrier, rejoins and clipped into P3. Now unfortunately, heavy damage, little contacts like that, you can see by, I think, the aggression on P2 there through the corner. He wasn't very happy, because I had a suspicion he might have got damage. And as we go down the main straight here, you're going to see how easy this is for us to get ourselves up into P2. So we get it into 6th gear and just watch the speed difference, because his car has the damage on the front end, and that's pretty much his race done, because he's on the medium tyres. He's going to have to go all the way to lap 12 with that slow pace on the straights, and obviously less speed through the corners as well. So rather unfortunate for him, but for us this is great. We're up into P2 and we're still just about in that slipstream to Perez there, and you can see we actually managed to get right back up on the medium tyres. Our medium tyre pace was actually pretty strong. We were getting a little bit of bump drafting from P3 every now and then on the straights, but through the corners we were driving really well. We'd actually got right back in this race and in the battle for the win, and the win for this was 409 points. So we're going to give it all here and try and stay with him for as long as possible. Now my downfall for this race was probably the tyre saving. My tyre saving wasn't quite perfect. I was pushing these tyres quite a lot to stay with P1 and obviously giving myself the chance to go for this win. So I was running these tyres to the absolute limit. You can see here on the in lap here, before we're about to pit now on lap 12, there was not much left on these medium tyres. We're using every single bit of rubber that is left to get us to the end of that lap. And now we're going to jump into the pits, put a fresh set of soft tyres on, and again we're going to try and stay with him all the way to the end. And you never know, if we can stay close enough for a move on the final lap, that is what the target's going to be here. You can see we've also got other cars to battle with here though. We've got P3, and then we've got a bit of a gap to P4 and P5. So we have got ourselves in a very good position going into this final stages race, where we should be able to get a podium no matter what, because the three drivers at the front have built up a nice gap, and some of them other cars have fell back a bit. But a little bit of battling and cars will catch up very quick. So by the time we get to lap 14, you can see we're still maintaining in that slipstream, just taking it easy at this stage, trying not to use too much of my tyres up. What I wanted to do was, on this stint with the softs, was just use that slipstream and just try and stay as close as you can, drive smooth, and then if there was an opportunity to go for a move, obviously go for it, but I didn't want to burn the tyres out before the last few laps. And you can see, as we come into the braking zone, keep your eye on the mirror. P3 goes way too aggressive on the brakes. Luckily for us, we don't pick up damage, but he hits us in the rear, pushes us wide, then he goes past us, and this was it was obviously an accident. I don't think he did it on purpose. You can see he's put his hazards on. Now it would have been better if he lifted on this straight and tucked in behind us. and gave me bump drafting down the straight to try and get us back up to P1. But you can see he stays to the right. We're going to go down the inside. He brakes a little bit early to give us that corner, and then we're going to try and tuck in behind Prez. But you can see at this point we're over 1 second behind, and I was a little bit lost of rhythm when that happened. It just threw me out a little bit, and it took us a couple of corners to get back into the rhythm. And you can see here he's at 1.1, 1.2, and then 1.3. We are gaining in some places. We start pulling back, and you can see by the time we get to lap 16, the gap has gone up to 1.6, 1.7, 1.8 seconds. So we started to just lose that slipstream going into the final 2 laps, and that was quite kind of frustrating because I felt with how close we was to him and the benefits of that you'd get on them straights being so close to the car in front, I felt we could have stayed in that battle for P1, especially in P3 if he was working with us. Now he carried on working with us all the way pretty much until the last moment, until he thought, right, I'm going to go for a move now, because he obviously knew about the mistake that he had made. But you can see at this stage we do get back a little bit closer, back up to 1.4 seconds to P1, but with just 2 laps to go and that tyre wear really kicking in, it's going to be very, very difficult to get any closer than this. You can see I'm trying my hardest using them gears to rotate it, but P1 is driving extremely well, and we have a little moment on the rear there, but just about managed to hang on. And you can see also Bray in P4 started to catch up slightly, obviously with that mistake that we made where we lost, I think we lost about 6-7 tenths, but at the moment we are still in a good secure position for a top 3. Now as we skip to lap 17, you can see that P3 is going to say, right, I'm going to go for this. This is what our plan was with P1, sit in that slipstream until lap 17, and then on the final lap go for a move on the inside. So I can see him go for the move on the inside, and I think I'm not going to panic too much here. I'm just going to brake early, try and get a really good exit off this corner, which we really do. I absolutely nail that. And he goes a little bit wide, has a moment on the rear. Now we've got the slipstream back, and we're going to fight this back. With the tyres as dead as they are, I went for a risky move here. Braking late, round the outside, and try and hold it all the way around the outside, and somehow managed to get the car to grip and got that position back. I was super happy with that move. I cannot tell you about the adrenaline that was going on during this phase of the race. We know that a P2 is worth some big points, so yeah, try and hold on. It had a little moment on the rear. You can see the rear right tyre is really starting to fade now on the tyre wear, and we're going to have to defend on the inside here. Now you can see we're going to rev it out in 5th gear. He's on the outside. He's going to try and go round the outside of this corner, but I know going round the outside of this corner with them tyres on the right hand side is going to be extremely difficult. So we make sure we hit our brake point, we get on the throttle nice and early there, we get good traction, and we manage to just about hold on to P2. Now we've got to try and hold on for one more corner pretty much into the braking zone. So try and carry the speed through. I actually go down to 4th gear because the tyres are totally gone, and then back over to the left to defend the inside, brake on that 100 board. You can see again he's going to try and get a better exit from the corner by going a bit wider, and we get a pretty good exit off that corner. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to keep the car all the way over to the right. So as he's picking up the slipstream, I'm not sure why he didn't stay to the left there. You can see I go to the right, and I think he mistimes the movement to go to the left, and he actually bump drafts me slightly, and we end up getting a very, very nicely earned P2 in that race. So a great race, P2, and some very, very nice points to take home after round 1. So let's have a little look at that move again on the replay camera, going all the way around the outside, braking it nicely, getting it rotated, and lovely up into P2. I was super proud of that move, I have to say, on the last lap with them tyres, and it was good enough to get us 391 points from round 1, and that is good enough to put me P11 in Europe and P2 in the United Kingdom. So pretty good start for us in round 1. Let's hope we can carry that momentum on into round 2, 3 and 4. But thanks for watching. I'll be back with more videos in the future. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you all soon for more streams and videos. Take care, everyone.